Hi everyone, my name's Mark Deere and I'm super excited because this is my 99th video out of 100 that I'm making in 100 days as part of my sharing my process while I work on my documentary Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker, where I talk about, it's been 20 years this year in 2025 since I made my first feature film. So 20 years ago I made my first feature-length film. And in this video, one to go before I get to the 100, which I'll shoot tomorrow, the last day tomorrow, I wanted to talk about how making movies, in a previous video I talked about how I love movies, I love watching and making movies, but making movies is the greatest. But I also wanted to say it with a caveat, which is some people say that making movies or loving making movies is a curse, and it can be a curse, but I also think it's the greatest thing in the world. So I'll start by talking about it being a curse, because I've had this note for a while. One of my favorite independent films ever, it's called The Magician, by a guy named Scott Ryan. He went to RMIT a little bit before I did at a university in Melbourne and studied film there a couple of years before I did. And he made a film called The Magician. And it's an excellent independent film. I highly recommend watching The Magician. I think it started out as about a 40-minute film. Sorry, I'm very itchy. A lot of mosquitoes around. You'll probably see them buzzing around me. Yeah, it was about 40 minutes to start with. And then Nash Edgerton, who's another amazing independent filmmaker from Australia, he came on board to produce it with another, I think Louise Smith was the other producer, who I worked in a course with a few years ago. But so they produced The Magician, hopefully I got that right, and expanded it to a feature-length movie. They shot a couple scenes and a new start. Anyway, that film, amazing film. But soon after he shot that film, I think it was about 2006-ish, maybe 2007, around that time anyway, 2005, 6, 7, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a video of him, it's on YouTube, so I'm assuming it's from about 2007 or 8 or something. There's a video of him he's just sitting in his garage, he's like having a smoke, and he talks about how filmmaking is a curse. And it's really interesting because he talks about how, yeah, he kind of wishes he never fell in love with filmmaking. He wishes he never made a film. He's like, if I had to just become an accountant or something else, I wouldn't have to have this feeling, but he's like, I have to make films. It's a compulsion. And I've felt this my whole life too. The last 10 years, I've been working as a classroom teacher. For 11 years before that, I worked in video work, like I was doing TV ads and corporate videos, while making narrative films on the side, independent narrative films. And yeah, he said, I regret that I made a film because I just want to make films, but it's so hard because you've got to get money. But he talks about he doesn't want government funding. And he says, like, you know, you got to get people to work on it, and it's so big, and what you want to do, it's so difficult. And he was really down, I think, because I guess he'd made The Magician and probably hoped it's all going to work out. And then kind of not much had happened. It's a great afterword to that story. If you can find the video, if I can find the video, I'll link to it in my description just so you can see that video. But afterword to that is 18 years later, around about, he made one of the best TV shows of all time called Mr. In-Between. If you haven't seen this show, figure out a way to see it and see it. And he plays a similar, I think he plays the same character, Ray, in that show. He's like a hitman. And the show is excellent, highly recommended. But in the meantime, I think he like drove a cab and like, I guess was just still working on the idea of this character for all that time. I'd love to meet Scott Ryan in person one day. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if I ever get the opportunity, I'd love to meet him. But anyway, so he made this video about filmmaking being a curse because it's hard. You can't just do it all the time. There was another video I saw as well on YouTube with Orson Welles. So my middle son's name is Orson, not named after Orson Welles, but it's just funny, the coincidence. Orson Welles talked about how he wished he'd never made a film. He's like, oh, I was upcoming, I was doing so well, but then I made a film and I fell in love with the medium of film, and my whole life was just suffering basically because I wanted to make films and it was so hard. And he always had a hard time finding film, financing. So he'd do acting roles to finance his films and go to Europe to, do whatever he could to get films made and financed. And it's funny how, so these guys are like, oh, filmmaking, it's hard. But I guess this is where my thinking changes. This is where there's a fork in the road for me, because I think in recent years, and not even in 2007 when I was at university studying filmmaking, and earlier than that, 2001 and 2000, I started uni in 2000 till 2004, my undergraduate degree. Back when digital filmmaking, that was the very beginning of digital filmmaking, like most projects were still shot on film. And by 2006-07, HD had started to become a thing, but wasn't really a thing yet. But then obviously the DSLR revolution with the 5D Mark II and the Panasonic GH1 and the Nikon D90, those three cameras kind of all had large sensor shoots, and that kind of changed everything. And now, where we are now is there's a lot more of that, the democratization of filming, and then phones in your pocket. Like I could pull out this phone and shoot a better quality film than anything I could have shot on HD cameras from 2007 when I was doing my master's. So with the democratization of filmmaking equipment, so both cameras and editing software, I feel like making movies has changed. It just depends how you want to define it. So if you want to make something large scale, Hollywood level quality film, still just as hard as ever. Maybe harder than ever, I don't know. Maybe it's not though, because there's more money coming from the streamers, but I think there's definitely, it's hard, it's difficult, right? But if you look at independent filmmakers, guys from the folk filmmaking movement, I guess we'll call it, I know there's different things for it, but guys like Dan Lotz and Joel Haver especially, like so many other people, Alex Clegg in Australia, if you want to have an Australian folk filmmaker named. These guys are making independent films for no money because access to gear is cheap, they're getting their friends in and they're being creative, they're making films. And this is what I want to celebrate, but even more so, doing it with your kids and your family. Making narrative films for fun as an artifact that you can have forever and look at and enjoy, just to create, just for the process, to focus on the process with your friends, with your family, with other people who are interested in it, same as you are, just getting a group around you, kind of like what John Waters was always doing. I look at John Waters films and I think, oh, he's always shooting in Baltimore. He's bringing like the same people every time. He'd have to get a star or whatever to get the funding. But like, I feel like he had it figured out back then, you know, like keeping things independent. And the way Kevin Smith started, just getting his friends together and trying to make the best film he possibly could without needing to go onto Hollywood, just doing independent film. And that's what he's come back to. You know, he's come back to doing independent films with people he likes and doing it for much lower budgets, but for fun. Anyway, it is a bit of a curse because it's hard. You can't just do it. It's not like drawing where you can just do it or writing where you can just do it. It's like you need to rely on other people. You need to rely on equipment and a lot of things. It's difficult, but it's so rewarding and so amazing. And I love filmmaking. So here I am at video 99 out of 100. And I've been ranting for a long time, but all just to say, I love making movies. I love making movies. It's a compulsion. I would do it for money. I'll do it for no money. I'll be doing it anyway. I mean, really, if anything, I'm taking a break from my 10 years of being a teacher because I just had a long service leave for 3.5 months. That's why I started making these videos. And in the process of doing that, I've realized I'm gonna take a mini retirement. In his book, The 4-Hour Workweek from like 2007, Tim Ferriss talked about having mini retirements. And if you haven't read that book, I recommend giving it a read. But I mean, I read it back in 2007 or 8 or something. But it was a good book and it kind of transformed the way that internet stuff, well, not transformed, but it certainly called attention to the new way of doing business online at the time when it came out in like 2007. But yeah, the idea of mini retirements has stuck with me, but I've never really acted on it. And I think now for the first time, I'm going to do a mini retirement next year. And I'm going to make films. I'm going to make films. So I'm so itchy. I apologize. I've just been scratching the whole time, but there are so many mosquitoes. So I think I'm just going to call this video there. 99 done. Video 100 tomorrow. I'm so excited. I did it. 100 videos in 100 days. And next year, 2026, we're going to make some narrative films. It's going to be the best. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a subscriber if you are. If you aren't, subscribe. If you want to hear updates from me next year, I've started an email list at my website. So go to markdeary.com and you can sign up for my email list to get updates from me in 2026. Thank you for watching. I hope you get to make a movie this year too. I'm super excited and I'll see you guys in video 100 tomorrow.